Kid, have I ever told you the story of how your mother showed me How I Met Your Mother for the first time? It all started in 2018, 4 years after the show had ended. We were both studying for our UCLA classes in our apartment building. I don't know why it looked like a jail. Unsurprisingly, it felt like one too. Maybe that's a story for another time. During our studying sessions, your mom wanted to put on something in the background. She recommended the show called How I Met Your Mother, a show she had watched a few years prior that she enjoyed. I only knew one thing about the show going into it. The ending was terrible. Oftentimes, I don't go for something if I know the ending is bad, which is why I've never watched shows like Lost or Dexter. But kid, if you let yourself be stopped by a future disappointment, then you'll never be able to enjoy the moments leading up to it.
No way. That did not just happen.
There is so much in life that can and should be enjoyed. And I thoroughly enjoyed How I Met Your Mother. Between the jokes, the visual gags, and the alarming amount of misogyny bundled up with the truly vile ways that Barney treats women, there is a heartfelt story filled with immense amounts of introspection and life lessons. And this story was the one that taught me what love truly is. Now, don't get me wrong. Love shouldn't be something that you should learn from just a television show. There are so many complexities when it comes to love, and the person you fall in love with will want to be loved in their own way, just like you should be loved in the way that you want to be loved. But for a show that went on for 9 seasons, primarily bouncing between the storylines of multiple failed relationships of the main character, Ted, the abundance of relationship issues showcased in the show teach you what love truly is. And it does that by highlighting exactly what not to do when it comes to love. You see, kid, your mom has always championed this huge rule when it comes to romantic relationships. The 3 C's: communication, consideration, and compromise. Now you might be thinking, how could you possibly define love with just 3 C's? We'll get to that. How I Met Your Mother reinforces these 3 C's by showing you what happens when you don't follow them. Each one of the characters embodies the exact opposite of one of the 3 C's. Let's start with the first one, communication. Lily and Marshall are 2 peas in a pod and are often the most healthy couple in the entire show, though they're not without their faults. From their breakup at the end of season 1 to the acceptance of job offers without consulting one another beforehand, the majority of their arguments are from a lack of communication. The quintessential example occurs in season 3 when we learn of Lily's exorbitant credit card debt.
How many credit cards do you have? I don't know. Well, how much do you owe? I don't know.
I always wondered how much credit card debt she was in for them to get an 18% interest rate from Mr. Mosby. At that time, 20K? 30K? Whew, any amount that high would be a nightmare. Kid, never get into credit card debt without a plan to pay it off quickly. It'll grip its claws into all of your finances, and nothing good can come when you're borrowing something you can't give back. Throughout the home buying process, Lily and Marshall struggle with communication with each other and with others. This lack of proper communication causes numerous issues for them and continues to be the primary issue throughout the relationship. And kid, don't get me wrong, your communication in a relationship won't always be perfect. Sometimes you'll say things you didn't mean, or sometimes you won't communicate at all. But it's the willingness to learn how to best communicate with your partner that makes all the difference in a loving relationship. And remember, communication isn't the only C we need to focus on. So let's move on to the second one, consideration. Kid, if I could just say don't do anything that Barney does, that would undersell my entire message, because we need to consider everything when it comes to consideration. Barney is awful. He's a manipulator, womanizer, and all-around inconsiderate jerk when it comes to the numerous hookups he has had. Throughout each of them, Barney never considers the other person properly. He's only interested in one thing. And kid, if a man is only interested in one thing, you know it's not love. Barney had become this inconsiderate jerk from all the trauma he had harbored. From his father abandoning him, his mother lying to him for years about his father, and to his first girlfriend breaking his heart, the ones he loved were never considerate enough to him. Only in later relationships does Barney truly consider what his partner wants, and it's incredibly refreshing to see. Yet there are still moments where he lacks enough consideration for the people he wanted to spend the rest of his life with, and he remains obsessed with only considering himself. Now, consideration shouldn't be something that prevents you from living your best life, but if you are always focused on what you want, you'll never be able to sustain a loving relationship. Now, what happens when you both want different things? Well, let me introduce you to the third C, compromise. Robin Scherbatsky is a walking contradiction. She's a gun-loving, cigar-smoking Canadian woman who was born to a father who wanted a son. In her relationship with her father, there was no compromising on how Robin was to live her life. She had to live in the way that he wanted her to, and thus, Robin became an uncompromising force. When she planned out the life she envisioned, she didn't want to compromise or change her direction in life for anyone. For example, when Robin and Ted make the plan to move in together, Robin is unable to make space for Ted in her apartment.
Why don't you just throw me down in the storage space where you have room for me?
She doesn't make room for romantic partners in her life plans, so it always felt like Robin and her partners were walking along parallel lines. And because of that, many of those relationships were doomed to fail, all because she wasn't able to compromise with her partners. Now, kid, I don't want you to get confused about the term compromise. It often gets associated with negative context, as it would seem both sides would be making concessions. But compromising for a relationship shouldn't be out of hatred, but out of love for the other person. Of course, you should be able to do the things you love, but you should also be able to plan a mutual agreement with your partner to continue doing what you love, and allow them to be able to do what they love too. Never think of it as giving things up for the other person. That would only lead to malice. Think of it as making things work. If you wanted to be an architect, a kindergarten teacher, a lawyer, a newscaster, and even
Please.
you're not going to be able to do it all. At least, not at the same time. You need to make some decisions on how you're going to make it work. And relationships, the ones filled to the brim with love, are worth making it work. With that, we've wrapped up the 3 C's: communication, consideration, and compromise. On the surface, How I Met Your Mother reinforces these concepts and leads everyone to believe that these were the most important aspects to focus on in order to develop and nurture a loving relationship. We can understand this especially when examining the main character, Ted Mosby. Throughout his numerous failed relationships, we can see he fails to communicate properly, such as initially hiding the fact that he was in charge of building over the building Zoe fought so hard to keep. He fails to consider his partner properly, such as not listening to Victoria's concerns about his friendship with Robin, and he fails to compromise what he wants in a relationship properly, such as wanting to build Robin up to be his ideal partner and mother of his children, despite their misaligned goals. But no matter how many failed relationships Ted goes through, there is a driving force that allows him to attempt to love again and again until he found the one. This driving force is only revealed when analyzing the show on a deeper level and is the most important aspect of a loving relationship, even more so than all those 3 C's combined, for it can be known as the elusive 4th C. You see, How I Met Your Mother doesn't just define love by the 3 C's, but it also expands on them. You may be thinking it could be care, collaboration, commitment, and so on, which are also so important. But this one specific and vital C truly defines what love is. And that C is... Could you imagine if I ended the story like that? That would be extremely disappointing. Kid, not every ending is a good one, or even a happy one. But bad endings can be just as important as the good ones, because you proudly championed the 4th C, You chose to get to the ending. And that is what love is all about. How I Met Your Mother taught me that love is a choice. Every day, in everything that we do, we make the choice to do it. Throughout the series, after numerous heartbreaks, Ted holds on to the power of love. He is seen as a hopeless romantic, and he clings to the idea of finding the one who he can have a loving partnership with. And by all means, that doesn't seem like a hopeless romantic, but a hopeful one. Because even though he falters in his beliefs from time to time,
Every day, I think I believe a little less, and a little less, and a little less, and that sucks.
he chooses, every day, to love. To love his friends, to love McLaren's, to love his partners, to love New York City, and to love love. Kid, this life isn't an easy one. You're going to go through a lot of rough times. And when I say rough, I mean really rough. Worse than any old goat can make you feel. But know that even though you always have those rough times, you'll always have the sweet ones to look forward to, which will allow you to feel the love even when you're in your darkest moments, as long as you choose to feel it. Unlike Ted, I don't believe the universe has already set out a plan for us, and that our fate has already been decided. But if it has, if the universe is waiting for us to follow the path it laid out, then we need to make the choice to follow it every day. Because love is always a choice. We need to choose to communicate with our partners effectively. We need to choose to consider them in all aspects of our life. We need to choose to compromise to make things work. And we need to choose to love every single day. Because love is the most important thing we do, and the most important choice you will ever make in your life. And that, kid, is a story of how I Met Your Mother taught me what love truly is. Did you get all that? That's okay. Throughout your life, you'll learn so many lessons that one video or series won't be enough to encapsulate everything. And you'll never stop learning and relearning lessons throughout your life. But I hope you make the choice to accept life and all its lessons, no matter how difficult these lessons may be. Because life is filled with love, and love is a choice worth choosing every single day.